Hello, everybody. Welcome to Leiden University's Institute of Political Science. This is our talk show on the Masters in Political Science. So we are going to be talking today about two of our specializations, the specialization in democracy and representation and the specialization in Dutch politics, Nederlandse Politiek. So we have here, my name is Daniel Thomas. I'm a professor in the Institute, but you're here not so much to hear from me, but rather to hear from two students who have experienced these specializations who can tell you what it's really like. So we have two students who will introduce themselves, but I will just say briefly, we have Rosan Speek, who is a student in the Democracy and Representation track, and Sterre Dieteren, a student in the Dutch Politics track. So before we get into the content, just tell us a little bit about yourselves. What did you do before joining our program and so forth?
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Rosan. I am Dutch. I studied international relations and international organizations, the bachelor at the University of Groningen before I started doing this master. And I also did an internship in public affairs, which is lobbying, for those of you who are not aware.
So, hi, everyone. I'm Sterre. I'm 23 years old. I'm from Leiden. I did a bachelor's in political science here in Leiden and also half a bachelor's in Dutch law. And now I've started the master's Dutch politics this September.
Thank you. Okay, so let's just dive right into your experience. Tell us, why did you choose the specialization that you're in?
Yeah, so why did I choose my specialization? The specialization, democracy and representation, is really focused on political parties and party systems as well. And I've always been fascinated by why people choose to vote for who they vote for, even if we might perceive that as being against our own interest. And if you want to know more about that, then yeah, you need to study democracy and representation, because I've learned so much about the party system.
Very relevant with elections coming up in this country.
Definitely. I've talked about the upcoming Dutch parliamentary elections, I think at least 6 times this week. Don't worry if you're not into Dutch politics. We also talk about other elections and other party systems, but yeah, it's come up a lot.
Mm-hmm. Sterre.
Yeah, so what Rosan is talking about, the representation and why people vote for parties, and what they vote for, I really like that as well. But I'm more into Dutch politics. So also the collaboration between local politics and the Rijksoverheid and the media. And I like other politics, but Dutch politics really has my specific taste.
Okay,
yeah.
Great to hear that passion. So what you've already heard is the specialization in Dutch politics is the only one of our specialization that is officially bilingual. So you do need to be able to read Dutch texts and so on to join that program. How would you explain to future students or students who are thinking about joining the program, what's special about your specialization?
What's special about it? Yeah, so what I really think what's special about it, and if you hear me saying the word parties and political parties and party systems a lot, that's really what's special about it. A lot of the specializations in political science talk about politics in a more general sense, and through the electives we get, we do that as well. However, what we really focus on is political parties. So how are they organized? How do they interact with each other? And how are party systems how do party systems impact political parties? And then not only from a Dutch perspective, which I do talk a lot about because I'm Dutch, but also a friend of mine always talks about India. The United States comes up a lot, as you might imagine, Germany. So yeah, that's really what's special about it, this comparative politics element focusing on political parties.
Mm-hmm.
So, if I'd have to answer that question, we have a core course. It's called Nederlandse Politieke Instituties. And we talk about the Dutch politics as a whole and the system. But what we do in those 4-hour-long working groups, we talk about current politics. So the teacher asks us, what have you seen in the media this week about Dutch politics? And we give him some subjects. And we choose a couple of them. And he will give us a lecture about what is happening at that moment in Dutch politics. And we speak about tweets of people in the parliament, what Mark Rutte is doing. So it's very up to date. Yeah.
Okay, so you've just mentioned the core seminar. So each of our specializations has a distinctive core seminar. Yeah. So the function of the core seminar is to give everybody a basis in a set of arguments, a set of theories, a set of approaches to analyzing that field. So tell us a little bit about the core seminars in your respective fields.
So my core seminar really, again, is a lot about parties and political parties. I won't go into it again because I already mentioned it, but what I also really like about my core seminar is that we do a lot of discussions. So we get readings every week. These are research papers that we have to analyze, read very closely. We have to write a reaction paper to them. I personally like reaction papers in order to write them. And then in class, we really just have a discussion, like what did we think about these papers? What do they say about political parties? Yeah, and how do they interact with each other? So yeah, it's really a discussion in class. It's not really a lecture like you might have in your bachelor, but really more just a discussion.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in my core course, again, Nederlandse Politiek Instituties, the way it is given is quite the same as yours. We discuss about each other's papers. But what we do, we have a report of a state commission, which was written in 2018. And they have given Dutch politics advice on how to make Dutch politics and the party system sustainable for future. And we discuss a topic every week, and then we get to write a reaction paper to the Commission about what they haven't taken into mind when writing the report. And we kind of like advise the Commission. So, and we get to discuss about that. Yeah.
It's great to hear this kind of enthusiasm and passion about your subjects. Tell us, on the other hand, what did you find particularly challenging, particularly difficult in your experience of the program?
Yeah, so what I found difficult is, I think, the course load. So I like writing reaction papers. However, if you have to write 2 a week for a certain elective, that's a lot. Especially, I had a side job, so you really have to cut back hours. And really, a master program is like full-time employment almost. So yeah, what I found difficult is balancing the course load, reading like 12 papers maybe, and then writing a paper about it as well. However, I did survive, so that's also having to say that.
Yeah, so I've just finished my bachelor's degree in March. So I was used to the workload of a bachelor's degree, and I think it's quite different in a master's degree. The level is higher, you get assessed every work group about how you participate, and I think, you have to do more. The workload is much more than in your bachelor's degree. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So a higher workload, but also a much more intimate, small-scale education, right?
And I'm much more motivated for my master's than for my bachelor's because I do what I really like. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that goes for basically everyone in class, because when we're having a discussion, and discussion is only really fun if everyone has read what we're discussing, and also when they have very relevant examples. So we're not only discussing what we've read, but we're also discussing maybe cases that have been in the news that week or that we just happen to know from our prior education. So yeah, I think that's what makes it very fun. So it's very heavy course load, but everyone's very interested, engaged, and has a lot to bring to the table.
Yeah.
And these seminars are typically on the range of 5 to 10 students, maybe 15 students.
Yeah, I only have 6 students.
6 students, yeah.
Yeah, I think for my core seminar, it's also around 10. So it's a little bit more than Dutch politics, but these are small specializations in general.
So a much more intimate learning environment,
Yeah.
I like it, yeah.
So we've already talked about some of the ways in which it's different from the bachelor's. Is there anything else you want to add?
I think the examination that we get is also different from the bachelor's. In the bachelor, you might have tests that you have to do. However, so far, I've really mostly written papers that you get graded on, as well as a participation grade and maybe a group paper or a presentation. But it's mostly a lot of writing and not so much just... and also writing your own perspective or writing your own argument, and not so much just memorizing information and then making a test.
I agree, yeah.
Sorry.
Anybody who comes to do a master's in political science obviously is interested in politics. Otherwise, you wouldn't do it. But does the experience of being in the program change the way you think about politics?
So I've experienced so far that politics is a process which is always people and scholars think about how they can improve it. So it's not just one institution in The Hague and they talk about problems in the Netherlands, but it's a specific work field, and people think about how they can improve it and get citizens to participate in politics. So yeah, I think it's my look on politics is that it's much broader than I thought of it. Yeah.
Yeah, to me, it's not so much getting a lot of knowledge on how to improve it, but looking a little bit beyond the cases and also looking at the theorization in the field. And that's really what I've taken away mostly from this master, is how we can not only have two perspectives on an argument, but we can have two perspectives on just the field and the party itself, like what should be the function of a party, and really separating the theorization from your normative views of what you may think of a certain political party.
And you've talked about the core seminars, which is an important, each specialization has its own core seminar. Tell us a little bit about some of the other parts of the curriculum. So there's the Great Debates course that everybody does, and then some of the other courses. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I started in February. I didn't start in September, which means I first had Great Debates and the methods class we get, and then I immediately had the electives. And now, after summer break, I've started on my core course and thesis writing. So the electives I chose were interest groups and advanced cases in consolidation of democracy. And personally, I really like how these topics go really in-depth in a specific subfield of the subfield we've already chosen in our specialization. So especially the interest group elective I had, I really enjoyed. It was really all about lobbying and how interest groups lobby, why do they do so, how do political parties interact with them, and is it effective, is it meant to be effective, should we normatively think it should be effective? Really a lot of these questions on a very, very specific topic. And I really enjoyed it because, as I said, I had an internship in public affairs as well. So really getting to take some of my knowledge from practice and then take it, into the classroom.
Okay, so you've shared with us some sense of the elective part of the curriculum. Sterre, can you tell us about the Great Debates course or the methods courses? Or?
Yeah, so I'm in Great Debates course right now. The subject says it all. We discussed 2 great debates in political science, and the first one we just finished, and it was about the hollowing of the Western democracy, which means how people tend to participate less in politics, how people are not members of political parties anymore, and the rise of populism. And we read a whole book about it from Peter Mayer, and we wrote a reaction paper to it, and we discussed it in work groups. And today we started on our second great debate, which is the decline of the American world order. I cannot say that much about it yet because I just started it, but I think it's very interesting so far.
Yeah, so these are 2 big debates that everybody in politics should have anybody interested in politics should have some experience with. So what's happening to democracy, particularly in the Western world, and then the future of international order. And so these are big, the reason we call this the Great Debates course, these are big debates, big issues. And this is a course where people from all different specializations come together and talk through and think through these big debates.
Yeah.
How about a little on the private side about student life? What's it like to be a student in Leiden, living in The Hague? What's that like?
So I also study in Leiden. Of course, the specialization I take and this specialization as well are both in Leiden. However, I live in The Hague. It's like a 13-minute train ride, and door to door it's probably 20, 30 minutes, depending on where you live in The Hague. And to be honest, I really enjoy living in The Hague. It's a bigger city. Some of you internationals may kind of laugh at that, but I'm Dutch, so I think it's a very big city, The Hague. There are a lot of restaurants. I love going out to dinner. And there's just a lot of amazing opportunities as well in the field of politics. So, for example, Dutch Parliament is there. I mentioned I have a side job at ProDemos, so we give tours of Parliament. This is not encouraging you to get a side job because it is a lot of work. But if you are interested in doing anything else next to your study, then there are so many lectures by, for example, I think a couple weeks ago, President Zelensky of Ukraine gave a video call lecture, basically, to students in The Hague. So all these opportunities are there. A lot of people come to visit that are really important in politics. So you can really, enjoy just a lot of these opportunities.
Yeah, because The Hague it's the political capital of the Netherlands, but it's also the seat of a lot of international organizations, European organizations, NGOs, and so on. So it's a lively political city in that sense. And then Leiden. Well, do you live in Leiden?
Yeah, I do.
Tell us about student life in
so
Leiden.
I've lived in Leiden for 5 years already because I've also done my bachelor's degree here. I come from a very small town in the south of the Netherlands, so Leiden was new for me, but I've integrated so much. I was part of SPIL, the Student Study Association of Political Science. I am a member of a student association in Leiden, and I do have a side job as well. But I'm also in local politics in Leiden. I'm a fraction assistant of Studenten voor Leiden, the student political party. So there's in Leiden also many opportunities to be politically active, but also have so much fun and make new friends.
Yeah, so Leiden, for those of you who've never visited Leiden, at first glance, you feel like you're walking around in the late 1600s or something like that, with all these historic houses and canals, but it's also a very lively student city with students out sitting on their front doorsteps and drinking a beer.
And Leiden is way smaller than The Hague, but it's very cozy, I think. Yeah.
And how about after your master's? You must have, since it's just a one-year program, you must have already started to think, okay, what comes next in my life?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I started in February, which means I will hopefully be done in February as well. And I've decided for myself I'm probably going to do a second master, which is an opportunity you can have here at the University of Leiden, which a lot of students do. I think it's fun to do them one back to back. However, afterwards, I think I will probably like to work at one of the Dutch ministries and go for the Rijkstraineeship if anyone knows what that is.
So I actually want to extend my master's a bit. I want to do an internship in my master's. I'm thinking about in a Dutch ministry or in a Dutch political party, or maybe at companies who analyze politics for other companies. So I do want to do an internship to see what I actually like and then do my thesis. And so when I write my thesis, I know what I want to do next. But it will be something in Dutch politics, I think.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So two things have just come up that I just want to explain for those who are new to this. So one is the, Rosan mentioned, February starter. So students have the option of starting in September or starting in February. Both are possible. The curriculum is more designed for the September starters. So if you start in February, which is an option, and many people do it, maybe a quarter of our students start in February, but that means you do the core seminar in the second semester, and that means you're doing the core seminar at the same time that you are preparing to write your thesis. So it has its advantages, and it suits certain people's schedule, so they choose to do that. But on the other hand, if you start in September, you have the core seminar in the beginning of your program, and then the thesis at the end. So that's a choice. The other thing that just came up was doing a second master's. So some people will do a second master's concurrently, on top of their first master's. That is allowed, but our program assumes that you're doing our program full-time. So if you try to do a second master's at the same time, that can create scheduling conflicts, which you have to live with. So then the alternative is to do them back to back, as Rosan said. Okay, so thank you very much, Rosan and Sterre. Now I will bring up my colleague Danielle Lovink.
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Danielle Lovink. I'm a study advisor of the master programs in Leiden.
So the study advisors play an absolutely critical role in the student's experience. If you want to imagine what your experience is like, think about a triangle, and one point on the triangle is the student, that's you. Second point on the triangle is the instructor, people like me and others. But the study advisors are crucial because the study advisors, every student is assigned to a study advisor, and the study advisor is there to help you making study choices, also dealing with any personal crises that emerge in the course of your studies. Some people go through the whole program and don't lean too heavily on the study advisor, but it's a very important resource for a lot of students. So thank you for joining us here. Okay, so now is the Q&A part of the discussion, so we will be responding to questions that you have submitted. So, is democracy and representation mostly focused on the West, or is it a more international or comparative perspective?
Okay, amazing question, because I feel like a lot of master's degrees tend to be a little bit focused on the West, as we are in the West. However, I think it really depends. It depends on yourself, what perspective you bring, and it depends on your teacher. So a lot of the professors, they themselves specialize in a certain aspect. They might specialize in European democracy, so they will likely give you a lot of readings that are also about European democracy. However, that is not necessarily the case. It is really an international perspective. So if you know of a good case study that is not from the West, or is just, let's say, my friend who always brings up India, and let me tell you, he does it every time, so you can definitely bring your international perspective in there. But yeah, if you guide the discussion, the class discussion, towards a different example, then really it can be about any case you want. So is it mostly focused on the West? I think a lot of the students may bring a perspective that is more Western-based, because a lot of the students are from Western Europe. However, this is really absolutely not necessarily the case, and no professor will ever restrict you in bringing up a case study.
Yeah. And we have members of staff who specialize in Latin American politics, or Asian politics, or African politics, and so forth. Would this master be doable for someone with a bachelor's in public administration? Short answer is yes, definitely. Any other?
Yeah, we ask from students to have ATEC background in political science or related field, and public administration is definitely related to political science, I should say. Our admission committee will look into it if your program is applicable, and next to other things they will look into it. So please apply if you are interested in our program, I should say.
Yeah, if you apply with a background in biology, we might think twice, but public administration is very much in our domain. Do you know how many applicants there are per year and how many get accepted in those programs?
Well, I should say in the September intake, the September intake is usually a bit bigger. So approximately 85 students will start in September. Around 30 students will start in February. So in total, 110, 120 students start in our program. But there are also students who will receive an application but didn't choose to start. That's also possible, of course. But 120 students per year, I should say.
So we really value the small-scale education. So some of our specializations are on the small side, others are larger, but the larger specializations, we break up the seminars to keep them small. So even if you're in a more popular specialization, you would still have small seminars. Is there a possibility to do an internship?
There are different possibilities. Of course, you can do an internship next to your program or back to back. There's also an internship trajectory. you can apply for that, and it is a bit different than a regular internship, but you have to do a research internship basically, on which you will write a research thesis paper. Your thesis will be on your internship research.
Yeah. So you can do a standard academic thesis, or you can do an internship-based thesis, but it's not just like what I did on my summer vacation. It's still a research project, but it's a research project inspired by the experience you had in your internship. Yeah. If you don't have the right grade average, is there still a chance you get accepted?
Well, that's a tricky question. The admissions committee will look into different subjects. So not only your grade is of course important, but they also look into your background and what you bring on the table, your motivation. So they look into the whole package. So if your grade is not really a 7.0, but maybe a little bit lower, then it might still be possible to access our program if the rest of your what you bring on the table is sufficient.
So they will look at the whole record, and if you could have a GPA that's just a little bit below the 7, or the Dutch equivalent. Yeah. But that's just an average. So you may have had a lot of really good performances, and then a couple of weak ones that are pulling you down. So they will look.
Yeah, I had in my political science bachelor's, I had a GPA of 6.9, so 0.1 below the requirement of a 7. And they told me to write a motivation letter, so I did, and I was accepted actually right away. So, yeah.
Okay. Are the courses very theoretically based, or are there some practical elements as well? What's your experience?
In my experience, it's a master at a research university, even though we don't classify it as a research master. So every course is theoretically based. However, if you're worried that might be too theoretical for you, there are always practical elements. So like we said, it's very discussion-based, and in discussions, we do discuss the theory, of course, but we also bring a lot of case studies to this theory, because that really helps you, at least it helps me, get my head wrap my head around it. It is a master at a university, so it's theoretically based. However, there are practical elements in the discussions, and also a lot of papers we read have cases, so that makes it a little bit more practical as well.
Yeah, I think political science is theory based on case studies. So you always discuss current politics or, history. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And in seminar discussions, even if the reading was theoretical, the discussion will be oriented or will be focused on, what do you understand better using this theory? Or a question I often ask when I'm teaching a master's seminar, I say, imagine you're working for a ministry, and the only thing you remember from your master's degree is this one article. That's the only thing you remember. And your boss asks you for advice. What would you advise the boss? So we use questions like that to try to think about the practical implications of the theory. Well, thank you very much. So first of all, thank you to Danielle, Rosan, and Sterre for joining the panel today. Thanks to all of you for joining us and showing interest in the program. Here, if you look at the screen, you will see some very useful contact details. So 3 of our study advisors, 2 who work in Leiden, including Danielle Lovink, who's here today, 1 who works in the program in The Hague. There you have contact details if you have specific admissions questions, because sometimes they're very nitty-gritty admissions questions, so that there you see where to direct those questions. And then also the student ambassador. And this is a student who is chosen to represent the program to the outside world. So you can direct some of your questions there. We also have on the 10th of October, Tuesday the 10th, at 3 o'clock, an online Q&A session. So you can join us again with more questions about the content of the programs, about basically any aspect of today's discussion. Use this QR code. You'll get more information about how to sign up for that session. And once again, thanks very much. And we hope to see a lot of you here in Leiden very soon, either in February or in September. Bye-bye.